Hey guys, welcome to my little paintbrush. I am Miss Sarah, and today we are going to be painting some of my favorite witches, the Sanderson Sisters from Hocus Pocus. So I hope you have a couple brushes handy. We have a large flat and a medium flat, and also one of my favorites, a line brush or a detail brush. You're going to need all three of these, or just a good medium brush that will cover the whole canvas. As we are painting together, a couple things to just remember. Let's have a good time. Be patient with yourself. We're learning together. Okay, you can always pause the video. I'm going to obviously paint pretty quickly because I've done this before, but you can pause it and rewatch it as many times as you need to. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to grab my medium flat first. Looks like this, okay? And we're going to put it in some water. If you have a jar or a cup handy. Our acrylic paint gets thirsty, so I always like to prep my brush before with water. And I have all my paints here laid out on my plate, ready to go. And we're gonna start out by putting our background in, which I chose purple for my background. You have a lot of colors to choose from, so if you're feeling like you wanna do a different color, we love to see what our artists come up with, so go for it. Pick a different color. But if you want to do it just like me, let's go ahead and load our brush with some purple. You'll see that my purple is pretty light. I like to start light, so I mixed my purple with some white here. Just lightened it up a little bit. You can always go back and add more purple to your white to make it a little bit darker. But one thing you'll find with acrylic purple is it's translucent. You can see right through it, and it's a little bit tricky to cover a canvas with sometimes. So we recommend you always add some white to that purple. Okay, so let's go ahead and go around our image. It's okay if you go into your image a little bit. You'll see that I'm kind of going into my pot sometimes. That's okay. Your pot is black, and it will just cover that paint right up. I'm doing my best, but I'm not stressing it too much. And we just have a little bit of space, so that's nice. It won't take you too long to put this in. But I don't want to lose the Sanderson Sisters silhouette here. So I'm going to be careful going around their head and their hair, this awesome hair. Go around here, and you can reach up and do what we like to call wrap your canvas. So if you want to paint the edges of your canvas that's up top and the sides, as we go, you can reach around and paint those purple so that all the sides are done. That way it just looks awesome when you have it up on your shelf or wherever you're going to display it. Okay, so her hair here is jet black, so not too worried about covering that fun curl or anything. Okay, so now that I have my background in here, I'm gonna put a little bit of dark purple on my brush, okay, and do my corners darker. The reason I do that is it just draws attention to the center of the canvas. And so I always like to paint the corners of my canvas a little bit darker. Okay, that's a preference choice, but you'll notice that in the reference picture, the corners are a little darker, and that's why. So I'm just gonna brush in a little bit of the dark purple here and just make sure it has really good coverage. Okay. All my corners are a little darker. And there we have it. We have our background done. Awesome. So let's let that dry for a second. Make sure you paint your sides and the top and the bottom, and then rinse your brush. All right, so let's go ahead and put our pot in while our background dries. I'm gonna switch brushes and use a larger flat now. If you want to keep using a medium flat for your pot, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. I just use a larger one to fill the space a little faster. So I just loaded my brush now with black. There's nothing else mixed with it. We're just gonna paint this pot here real quick. And you'll notice my brush is going kind of in a smiley shape motion. Because whenever you're painting, you want your brush stroke to show the direction of the pot. So if you have a round pot, you're gonna paint that direction. I'm gonna paint it round with my brush, as if I'm painting a smiley face, right? Now here we go. I'm gonna do the edges of my pot. I'm gonna slow down because I don't wanna lose my shape. We're gonna go all the way around here, okay? And if you feel like your paint isn't going on very well, it's probably because you need a little more water in your paint, because your acrylics will start to seize up a little bit as they sit. So I like to add water as I go. Here we go around that one. Just make sure we have our shape on there. Okay, and right here at the bottom of our pot, I can reach below normally and paint the bottom of my canvas so that it wraps all the way around. Kind of looks cool when it's done that way. Looks awesome. All the way around all the sides. Okay, so let's go around our bubbles here, our witch's brew. Okay, the reason we trace this in for you is so you have an idea of how high and low your bubbles should go. Because sometimes we get a little bubble happy, and pretty soon our whole canvas is full of bubbles. I've done it. So we just wanted to make sure you had a good idea of where the bubbles begin and end. You can add as many as you like, of course, but this will help you kind of gauge where they go. Okay, so this bubble here comes right around and they have the top of your pot. So I'm going to carefully paint around that. I'm using the toe of my brush, and if you don't know what the toe is, it's when your brush stands on its tippy toes. Okay, so whenever I need to do small areas, a lot of times if I'm using a big brush, I just put my brush on its tippy toes to get around those areas. Okay, just like that. And if you go into your bubble a little bit, it's okay. We're going to come back and paint that. This is just so you have an idea. Okay, so there we go. Now that we have all the black in, you want to make sure it's a little dry. Mine is. So the next step here, before it's completely dry, I'm going to put a little bit of white on the corner of my brush like this. So you'll notice it's right on the very corner. Okay, and I'm going to float the sides of my pot here. And you'll notice because your black is still a little wet, it turns gray. Okay, if it's whiter than that, if it's really white for you, that's okay. It can be lighter. I just wanted to show that our pot here is reflecting a little bit of light. It also shows off the edge of your pot so it doesn't get lost in your painting. Okay. So I like to brush up and down with a little bit of my white here. My paint is drying really fast, so it's not fading as quickly as yours probably will. And that's good. You want it to. You want it to fade in there. Okay, so I'm going to get that white. Just make sure. There we go. Okay, so now that the edges are done, I'm going to go ahead and show where the edge of my pot is here on the top, kind of where that top of the pot is, where the bubbles are coming out. So I'm going to rinse my brush because I want this to be a little bit wider, and your black should still be wet. And I'm going to put a little bit of white here on the corner of my brush, okay? And we're just going to go around and float the edge of our pot here where it curves. Okay, so I'm going to come around here. And this is where you're just going to create your own smile shape here to show where that pot comes up and over the side. Okay, it gives it some dimension. And go back and forth and just make sure that you can really see it. If you need to add more white to it, you can. It just depends on how much you want that to show. I wanted to make sure you could really see it. Okay. The other thing is, if you don't like it, if you feel like, oh, it's too much, the awesome thing is the pot is black. So all you have to do is come right back with some black to cover that. No big deal. Okay, so I'm going to go around and just make sure I have it coming around the top as well. And it's okay if you go into your little bubbles a little bit. That is perfectly okay. We're going back over that in a minute. We just want to make sure we have this done. There we go. So we're going to just make sure our pot is faded in there. You have bubbles coming over the side. This just gives you that illusion. Okay. I'm going to rinse out my brush now. Let's let our pot dry for just a second. And let's start painting our Sanderson Sisters. It's one of my favorite shows. We watch it every year. My kids love it. Okay, so here we go. We have these little shapes here. And this one here has her head coming right around here. Okay. Now here's our skin tone right here, and I'm going to mix our skin tone with a little bit of white. So you want to just take that skin tone you have and a medium brush, make sure you put it in water, right? And it's ready to go. Okay. And let's just go ahead and fill in our head here for each one with that skin tone. The more white you put in it, you know, the lighter it'll be. The reason I add a little bit of white to mine is it just brightens the color. If you want to just use the skin tone without adding any white, that's perfectly okay. I just love how the white brightens up the painting. You'll notice on canvas, it just really brightens up the color. Okay, we're just going to fill that in. Another little trick is I like to put more white on the center of the face. Okay, so if you brush in more white on the center and keep the edges a little darker, it will draw attention to the face more and show off the shape if the edges are a little darker. Okay, so there's our skin tone. I'm going to rinse my brush again. We're going to put our hair in because we want our pot really dry before we start doing bubbles. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our hair in. let's just work from the middle out. So we have white and orange, right? And her hair is so fun. I'm gonna mix my orange first with some white. So let's go ahead and do that because I want to put the dark orange swirls in her hair. And in order to show off those swirls, you've got to make sure you start with a lighter orange. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure my paint is nice and thin. If you need to add some water to it, go ahead. And let's just start off by filling in all of her hair here. You'll notice when I'm doing the edges, I try not to pick up my brush as I go around. This just gives us a smoother edge. Okay, go all the way around here and brush in the direction you want her hair to go. Her hair is so fun and just a little crazy. It sticks up all over the place. So I like my brush to just go straight up and down as much as I can while I'm painting her hair. But really, you could go all directions with her because she's just got that crazy hair. I'm going to go all the way around here. All right. And then, before you rinse your brush, I'm going to show you what we're going to do next on her hair, but you want to hold off on rinsing your brush, okay? I want to keep her heart-shaped face, so if we have to go back and shape it again, we can. Let's go all the way around. All right. Keep that going up and out. This here. Gotta slow down when you get around her face shape there. Don't want to lose that heart. She kind of has that heart-shaped face. Okay. All right, so before you rinse your brush here, you're going to float the edges or outline the edges with dark orange. So I'm going to put some orange on the corner of my flat brush, just like that, okay? It's just on the corner. And I'm going to follow the edges of her hair with the orange facing out. And you'll see that that orange kind of fades into her edges. We do that so her hair stands out and you don't need to outline anything when you're done. It's already done for you. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way around here. Just make sure you keep that orange on the edge of your brush, the very corner, facing out. Floating is kind of tricky, but the fun thing with hair is it doesn't need to be perfect because it just kind of fades into her crazy hair. It doesn't really need to have that perfect floated look. Okay. If you go into her face a little bit like I did, that's okay. Don't stress it. You can go back and just add some skin tone. Okay, so the other little thing we're gonna do here before you rinse your brush is take some orange on the corner and let's give her that part right up the middle of her hair. Just gonna brush that orange straight up and down. Okay. And you'll wanna do it on both sides. Right up and down the center, just so it's obviously darker. There we go. Give her that little part. All right, awesome. So if you're done, rinse your brush. So let that sit for just a minute. Okay, and let's go ahead and paint our blondie over here. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm taking my yellow, mixing it with some white, just to lighten it up, because when we come back, we want to add some strokes to her hair. And we want the different tones, some dark and light yellow to do it. So you just always want to lighten up your colors so it gives you options. And I like to paint in the direction of her part. So if her hair is parting here in the middle, I'm going to draw a line as if I'm brushing her hair with a hairbrush. And that gives it that part. And let's go ahead and paint around. Her hair kind of comes right around the pot here because it's long. You can also reach around the side of the canvas and paint the side of her hair over here. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and do her other little part. Being careful not to mix my orange and my yellow hair. Okay. I'm going to fill that in, still trying to go in the direction of her hair. So you want to always try and brush the hair in as if you're brushing it with a hairbrush. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to put dark yellow on the corner of my brush, and I'm going to float the edges of her hair with the dark yellow that is not mixed with white. Right? Just like we did with the orange, just so the edges really stand out. Go all the way around here. And then you can start adding those darker waves with what's left on your brush. So imagine that her hair is being brushed with a hairbrush, right? Where would you put those waves in her hair? You can get creative and do it any way you like. Okay, that gives it some texture and movement. And then let's rinse our brush. And let's go ahead and add this last one. Her hair is black. So I'm just going to load my brush with black here and paint this one. She has this fun curl. I'm not going to do that curl with my big flat brush. I'll use my detail brush for that in a minute. So let's just skip that part for now. Her hair is just so fun. I had too much fun painting her hair. Love it. Okay, so we'll go around. Let's go ahead and paint around her head best we can. Just slow down. And if you need to hold your canvas for this part, you totally can. It's hard to get that circle when it's sitting away from you sometimes. Okay, so we're going to do these little fun waves in her hair, and try and keep your brush going up and down direction, right? Because her hair goes straight up. She has some fun hair. And we'll add that little purple highlight in a minute. First, we just got to make sure this first layer's in there. There we go. And you can reach around the side and paint the side as well right now. All right. Let's make sure our pot is ready to go. There we go. I just like to make sure all of our paint is covered on there. This is where you can do a quick check before we get ready to do our bubbles. All right. There we go. I'm going to rinse my brush. And let's switch over to our line brush real quick. That's our smallest brush. It's also called a detail brush. Okay, I'm gonna load it up with some black, and let's just finish off her curl at the top here, all the way around. When you use this line brush, you can just get that fun shape a lot easier. Any little brush works though. You just want to give her this wonky curl. Just sets her apart from the rest of them. And also some little bangs. Okay, so here's the thing with her bangs. You can you can do this any way you want. I kind of tried to give her bangs going different directions. So one thing that's kind of fun to do is to go to the center bang, right in the middle here, okay, and do one going in each direction. So you do a smiley going out to the right and a smiley going to the left. And then you can kind of build on that. Okay. But that way, she has some character there. All right, there we go. So she has those fun curls going on. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead now and give her this eyebrow shape, just like that. Okay. And let that dry for a minute. Let's rinse our brush. Really good. All right. So before we move on here, I'm just going to load my brush with that skin tone and make sure our center heart-shaped head here is shaped right. Okay. Right before we do the rest of her hair, you just want to make sure she has that shape. So you can go right back over the edge and just fill it in real quick. Just like that. And then you don't have to worry about it. There we go. Okay. So let's get our detail brush ready. We're going to go ahead and start putting in her hair just while we wait for this black to dry before we do bubbles. We don't want to do bubbles with any black sneaking into our green. So I'm going to go ahead and get this dark orange ready. I'm putting a little bit of water in it because her fun swirls need to go on real easy. So you want to add this water to your paint so it's a little bit inky. Okay. All right, and let's go ahead and start. And you can have some fun with these swirls. They don't all have to be the same, but the idea is to start in the middle and work your way out. So I'm going to come right up the middle there, put that swirl on, okay? And they're all different sizes and lengths. So here's our other one here. I'm not too worried about it being perfectly the same. That's what gives her hair that fun character. So I'm doing some high, some low, but I'm trying really hard to just keep it coming up the center there. Okay. There we go. Get that last one up there up top. Another one here. And one thing you can kind of keep in mind when you're doing her hair is if you have an open space that you want to fill, that maybe you feel like is too open, I like to just kind of add a little curl like that. And no one will even know. It just balances it out. Okay, so once you've done this center, you can just fill in the space. So anywhere that needs a little curl or space filled, and I'm going to have them go different directions. So I have some going up and some going down. Okay. But we don't want to worry about it too much. If you are worried about how it's placed, you can chalk it in first. So that's where you just take some white chalk and you can come in here and chalk in your swirls. We love chalk because you can wash it off just like a chalkboard. So if you ever feel like you're a little nervous about placement, grab yourself some chalk and chalk it in first. Okay, so this is kind of fun. I like to just sometimes build off of one and curl it around like an S. Just like that. Just for kicks. Just to make it a little bit different. Here we go. We're just filling in the space. A bigger one here, so sometimes you can really drag it out a little more. Smaller one here. So you could do a smaller one and then fill it in just with a little curl like that. Fill in the space. I just work my way down. Just like that. Cute. I love it. Okay, before you rinse your brush, let's give her some eyebrows. Now these eyebrows are a little bit tricky. This, if you want, you can definitely take the time to chalk it in. But take the center. This is my little trick here. I like to figure out where the center is. Okay, hold my finger there and base my triangle shape eyebrow away from the center. Okay, but if you put your finger there, usually that gives you just enough space to where it's not too close together. Okay, but she has some really fun eyebrows. You can make them thicker. I like to make them thicker just so they really stand out. Okay, kind of have to just gauge it, but it is a triangle shape, so that will help. I'm going to rinse my brush. Okay, and let's go over here and give her one as well. Hers isn't as noticeable because it's yellow, but I want to make sure she has one too. All right, okay, let's get our detail brush loaded with white. Okay, and we're going to add this fun purple to her hair. Now here's the trick with the purple, okay? You are going to paint it white first and then put purple over it, and that way the purple really stands out. And your curls are going to follow the curls on the side of her hair. Okay, so we'll do this. It goes like this. See, to match up that. And here. Here. Okay, just like that. So if you want to keep going, I did one more to come down her head like that. And then you can go back. Once you have that idea, you can go back and thicken it if you want to. Okay, just depends on how much you want that yellow to show. But follow your curls. It's just the smiley face shape, and it goes with the sides of her hair. The curls there on the side of her hair. Okay, awesome. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead now and take the white on my brush and add the highlights to her hair with some white. And you can just add these wherever you want to give her some movement here in her hair. Just like that. Okay. I also added some here. You want to make sure though that her hair is dry before you do this. Do you want this white to show? But if it's not dry, it'll just turn light orange, which is fine, but if you're okay with that. Let's see, put one more here. Awesome. All right, guys, their hair is dry. It looks good. Let's get going on our bubbles here. Okay, so use a large flat for these bubbles or a medium flat. But we're gonna make our bubble shade by mixing white, yellow, and some phthalo green. The phthalo green is super strong, okay? You wanna start with just a little bit and adjust your color as you go. That's just a friendly tip because it's a very strong color. Okay, now as we're doing our bubbles, spin your brush in a circle motion. Okay, I'm going to start with the middle one. It's a good practice one, but you want to try and go all the way around, just like this. Okay, and we're just going to keep our brush going this direction as we paint. This is layer number 1. So if you're not loving how your circles are turning out, remember, we are just doing the first layer. We're going to come back in a minute. So just go for it and start adding these circles with your brush. You may have bigger bubbles than me. And you know what? Some of my bubbles are not perfectly round. And I'm not worried about it because these bubbles are coming up in all kinds of directions, right? All kinds of ways here. So I'm just not too worried about it if it's not a perfect circle. If you miss some black like I did right there, don't stress it, okay? We're gonna come back to that as well. We'll just fill it in. Right now, we just wanna make sure all of our green is in here. The reason I'm using a bigger brush too is it fills the space really fast. Otherwise, you'll be doing bubbles all day. I'm gonna go all the way around. Go. One over here to balance it out. Remember, we do tend to get bubble happy sometimes and it just gets out of control, so we want to make sure we don't do that. I think I'm going to make this bigger. Okay, so you have your bubbles on there. First layer. Now the second layer, we're going to go lighter, okay? And you're only going to do a couple of bubbles that you want to stand out. This gives it some dimension so that it looks like your painting isn't just flat on the canvas. Okay, so we're gonna let that sit for just a second. Let it dry. Grab your detail brush while that's drying. Let's put some white on it. Okay, and you're just gonna come over here and add the white highlight to your pot. Right there. Right along the edges. Because right now it's probably gray, which is fine if you want to just leave it. But if you add the white, just a little bit of white there, just really draws your attention away. I'm going to put some black on here, paint that in. Okay, rinse your brush. Okay, and while those bubbles are drying, let's put your purple in her hair. So let's just put some purple on that detail brush now. That white should be dry. Just want to make sure. And you'll see, because you painted it white first, now that you put this purple on, it'll really stand out. We're going to paint this. Way down. There we go. There's her fun purple. All right, I'm gonna get my brush here now and go back to my bubbles. Okay, I have my green. I'm gonna add a little bit of white to my green now. And just decide which bubbles you want to stand out. Okay, so I'm gonna choose these two here. You see the contrast of my bubble colors. They're a little bit lighter. It's not going to be a huge difference, but just enough to add that dimension, okay? So we're going to add that to these. One here. And then, let's see. Do one here. And it also brings them apart, right? So it doesn't look like you have just a blob of bubbles. It actually shows that there's different shapes in there. Lighter color over here. If you feel like something's not covering well too, just make sure you add a little more white to it. Okay, perfect. All right, so we have those done. We're gonna just let those dry for a second before we add our final little detail to our bubbles. So make sure this one's covered. All right, perfect. Okay, so we do have two other little bubbles, but before we do those, I really want to make sure we have our image transfer on, okay? Because your bubbles, you can kind of decide where you want them to go once that image is on, right? But let's put this on first. And the way we're going to do this image transfer is you need some chalk. All right, I'm going to get some chalk here. And this is a fun way to do an image transfer if you've never done it this way. We're just going to rub this chalk on the back of this paper. Really good. You want a good, thick layer of chalk here. And the reason is, however much chalk you have stuck on that paper is how much will transfer, so you can see the writing. Okay, so let's just make sure we have a good amount of chalk on there. All the way across. And remember, chalk will wash right off. Okay, so this is a great way to transfer something without freaking out that maybe it won't wash off, because it will. All right, so I put A needs to be centered. Okay, so I try to center that right where I want it. And you're going to take a pencil here. Now you can either outline the whole thing. Whoop, I have a mechanical here. You can either outline the whole thing and do all the detail work. My pencil's struggling. Or you can just give yourself an idea of where the letters go. Okay. That's up to you and how much you want traced on there. Just remember, whatever you trace is what's going to show up. So want to make sure you don't leave anything out. Let's hope it works, right? You really want to hold this paper still, because if it moves while you're tracing, it's really hard to go back and fix it. You want to make sure you hold it very still. Just going to go all the way around here. And then we'll have the grand reveal and see if it actually worked. Usually I have it laying down here to trace, laying flat. So we'll see if it works here. Okay. Ooh, it worked. It's a miracle. All right, so you can see the letters. And while you can see them, before they brush off, because it's literally like a chalkboard, you're gonna get some white on your brush, a little detail brush, okay? And make sure it is, it has water in it, so it goes on nice and smooth for you. Okay, and let's go ahead and write. See if I can do it without putting my wrist in there. If I have a steady hand. Usually I'm holding this in my lap. Here we go. I'm going to put our letters on. And then the A. I'm going to go ahead and do the on over here. So I don't want to put my wrist in it and lose it with the chalk. So a lot of times I do the smaller stuff first. Okay. There we go. So on, I put, now let's do the spell. All right. Let's see. I don't want to put my hand in it and mess it up. Okay, so this goes around and brings it up, just like that. Now let your wrist naturally do this. You can either follow it exactly how I got that image for you. So on your image transfer, you can either follow it exactly, okay, or you can have some fun with it yourself. Relax knowing that if you don't like it, all you've got to do is put some black on your brush and you can just paint right over it. It's a wonderful thing. Go around. There's that. All the way around here. Just make sure you have enough water when you're doing this in your paint. That is key to being able to smoothly transfer these letters. Okay. All the way around here. And you'll see that you can just brush off the chalk when we're done. once it's dry, of course. It's easy to get nervous about when you're painting letters. I am no calligraphist here, so no, you're not alone when you're doing this and it gets nerve-wracking. But that's why you have the image transfer, so you can just kind of copy it. And the wonderful thing with painting is no one expects it to be perfect, right? All right. So you can go back and give all of them, all your letters, another coat if you'd like. I'm going to stop here. All right. But if you want to go back and make sure everything has really good coverage and add, you know, a thicker layer, go for it. Now, while this is drying for just a second, because we don't want to take the chalk off while that's drying, we're just going to go up here to our bubbles. They should be dry by now. Okay, and let's just add this highlight to them. This is what's going to really set your bubbles apart. So it just looks like a rainbow shape. Okay, following your bubbles, you can just do one rainbow, or you can add a little touch of another stroke. And the idea here is that no two bubbles are the same. So you have these strokes in all different kinds of directions, okay? We have some on the side, we have some on top. Just like that. Just giving it that little rainbow. One there. Trying not to smear my image transfer over here, right? Careful not to put your wrist in it. If you want to give it a minute to dry, you can. Let's see. I'll put a little one here. Okay, see how it just really adds to our bubbles? Okay, we're going to give a little highlight to her hair, just so this really pops. Just like that. Awesome. Okay. Looking good, guys. Okay, so it should be about there for you. And then you can just dust off the chalk. If you would like, you can add just a couple little bubbles here. Just add these little circles. I grabbed a smaller flat. Okay. These are all things you can do while that's just drying for a minute. So you have one there. I'm going to put one over here. Just use the same green. I'm doing the lighter shade that I created for that top layer. Let's see, I'm going to have one right here. I just like the way it balanced over here. So I'm going to put that stroke of the S back in a minute. But these bubbles can go anywhere you like. Just remember to spin your brush in that circle. There we go. Okay. I think we're there, you guys. You have completed a masterpiece, right? Just make sure you give this a good second before you dust it off. I'm just going to make sure that my bubbles have that as well, that little stroke as well. Okay, and this S, I'm just going to add that back in. And here's that stroke on them to make them look like they've got reflection. And right here, just like that, and there you have it, guys. Any area you want to just cover, remember, you can do it with that black. Find a special place for your signature because you have worked really hard to complete this painting with me. And as artists, we always sign our name. Okay, and I'll show you real quick here. If you take a damp brush, okay, once it's dry, you can just dust it off, just like this. And you see that the chalk comes right off. I really don't want to mess any of this up, so I'm a little hesitant to do it because I don't think it's totally dry yet. I'm not sure. But you can, after you're done, you can just go through and dust off that chalk with a damp paper towel or a paintbrush. And isn't that awesome? It just comes right off and you have that beautiful little painting all finished. So thank you guys for painting with me today. I hope to see it really soon. We'll see you next time.